The purpose of understanding developmental milestones is to help parents and teachers understand what the child is going through at a particular time in their life, and to aid in identifying developmental issues that may arise. These milestones include physical, emotional, behavioral, cognitive, and speech changes. These milestones can be used to measure the development of a child and assess whether or not the child is beginning to show signs of requiring special education. Major developmental categories include speech, dressing skills, fine motor and visual motor skills, and grooming skills. These developmental categories can be used to assess the full extent of the disability and whether the child will need more or less resources to aid in overcoming the disability. A very common disability faced by students today is the specific learning disabilities, particularly dyslexia. A great way of understanding the full effects of a disability is by comparing a child with a disability to that of a child without a disability on the developmental milestones. For example, a child without dyslexia should be able to recite the alphabet and write their name by age 5. In contrast, a student with dyslexia may struggle for years after the age of 5 to learn letters and recognize their name. Students with dyslexia generally struggle to develop reading skills, which usually begins by age 6 or 7 for a typical development. Words can also be challenging to sound out and learn. This usually becomes evident around age 7 and can continue well into adulthood. Meanwhile, while dyslexic children are struggling to sound out words by age 7, non-dyslexic children usually begin to enjoy reading by age 9 or 10, or 8 or 9. Emotionally and socially, dyslexic children can suffer a great deal of embarrassment over their condition. Meanwhile, children without dyslexia are usually reading well by 12. Teachers should be prepared to modify their lessons to fit the needs of children who live with dyslexia. To aid dyslexic students academically, teachers should learn as much as they can about the disability and become familiar with the full extent of the disability's effects on their specific student. Teachers should be extremely encouraging and allow the students more time to complete practice and testing. Recognizing the struggles dyslexic children can have in reading, teachers should take time to make instruction simpler and offer instruction in writing and verbally as well. Offering the students with as many mediums of instructions as possible will always go a long way. Teachers should also take full advantage of any technology that may offer the student with dyslexia an opportunity. Technology can be hugely beneficial to those who struggle with reading, with many apps offering text-to-speech features that allow students to transform written instruction into verbal instruction. Outside of academics, teachers can take many steps to ensure the student's comfort level is as high as possible. The most obvious thing a teacher can do is foster a positive and welcoming classroom culture. Next, students with dyslexia may take longer to complete assignments than non-dyslexic students. Dyslexia can make work frustrating and allow students to be distracted more easily. To aid them, the teacher can make environmental changes to allow the students to be more comfortable. An easy way to do this is by dedicating a certain part of the classroom as a quiet place to ensure dyslexic students are as distraction-free as possible and able to take the time and attention required to complete their work. The next disability that should be focused on is intellectual disability. Intellectual disability can be described as a severe intellectual disability in function that coincides with issues in adaptive behavior. The student may not possess any physical signs of a disability, but behavior, speech, and cognitive function are adversely affected. Students without intellectual disabilities usually experience the beginning of social and verbal skills as early as age 1 and 2. This is why intellectual disabilities can often be detected by professionals as early as this age. Children with intellectual disabilities often struggle to develop social and verbal skills as early as typical children. Intellectual disabilities can affect children in many ways, but they can all present challenges to a child's social, physical, verbal, and cognitive development. These challenges can become more and more obvious as the child grows and continues to fall behind in the developmental milestones. One of the major advantages that children without intellectual disabilities have over children with a disability is the accrual of adaptive behaviors as they continue achieving developmental milestones. Children with intellectual disabilities may never learn how to perform some daily task. Similarly, students with intellectual disabilities may struggle to learn many things and may never learn some things at all. Students with ID can face serious learning obstacles that must be overcome to ensure that the student receives a quality education. Here are some instructional strategies to help teachers better educate children with intellectual disabilities. The first and most obvious step in helping students with a disability in academics is becoming very familiar with a specific student's IEP. By understanding how the child's disability affects that specific child, adjustments to instruction become much easier. Teachers should also offer as many visual aids and hands-on instruction as possible. By taking time to teach the student instruction one-on-one, a student will have a much better shot of understanding the lesson presented to them. Finally, teachers should learn to collaborate with the student's parents and other teachers to fully grasp the student's learning capabilities. Environmentally, students with intellectual disabilities will often require the help of many teacher aides. Other than the extra help, teachers should take steps to ensure that the student feels as much a part of the classroom as everybody else. Teachers should ensure that disabled students are an active part of group activities. These activities can go a long way in helping students develop better social skills as well. Students with intellectual disabilities may struggle to develop certain life skills. Teachers should take the time to allow intellectually disabled students to perform life skills in class as often as possible. Something as simple as allowing the student to sweep the floor or collect the trash can be of benefit to the student. The next special need to be focused on is emotional behavior disorders, or EBD. While there are many different types of EBD, all can make learning much more challenging to the student due to their emotionally unstable state. For children without EBD, their emotional development and maturity allow their learning to become more in-depth and easier as they continue to reach developmental milestones. In contrast, students with EBD can quickly fall behind in these milestones, and social and academic performance can be significantly affected. Students with EBD can struggle a great deal to make meaningful connections with people, and communication can be a struggle. For a typical development, as a child's emotions mature, relationships with peers and teachers often become deeper. Without this development, students with EBD can be alienated from their peers and distant from their teachers. Some students with EBD can be so negatively impacted by the disorder that life skills and motor functions can become extremely difficult. Instructional strategies for teaching children with EBD are varied. One interesting method of instruction for children with EBD is the 2x10 method developed by psychologist Raymond Wlodowski. According to Disabilities, for 2 minutes each day, 10 days in a row, teachers have a personal conversation, either written or in person, with a student about anything the student is interested in, as long as the conversation is G-rated. Wlodowski found an 85% improvement in that one student's behavior. End quote. Another great method is encouraging students with EBD to keep self-expression journals to document their thoughts and emotions, which, according to Disabilities, can help improve behavior and focus. Environmentally, teachers should foster a calming and relaxing atmosphere in the classroom. Play peaceful and quiet music, and allow for honest and fun conversations in the classroom to aid students with EBD to remain calm. Teachers should also be aware of students' demeanor and monitor for any potential environmental triggers in the classroom that can be quickly altered. Next, we have students on the autism spectrum. Autism can be detected earlier thanks to developmental milestones. Typically, children's imagination and playful behavior develop at a young age and continue to mature as the child ages. During this period, typically around preschool age, alert caregivers can spot the signs of autism. Children with autism usually are not very imaginative in their play and are generally not very playful children in general. Typically, children without autism begin developing verbal and more advanced movement skills by age 5. These developments can be delayed significantly by autism, providing another early warning sign to caregivers. Social skills are learned much faster by non-autistic children, as autism usually prevents typical social skills, listed by the CDC as eye contact, responding to their name by 9 months of age, showing emotional facial expressions, and joining other children in play. Specially designed instructional strategies for academics for children with autism are as follows. Students with autism are extremely sensitive to change. Routines should be established in the instruction. Students should know the general pattern of every lesson plan, and events should follow a timetable every single day. This allows the student to relax and feel more comfortable, fostering a greater capacity to learn. The use of constant and detailed positive feedback to better educate students on what behavior and performance is expected of them is of great benefit to autistic students. Environmentally, teachers should monitor their autistic students' behavior and act quickly to eliminate distractions from the classroom. According to an article by autismspeaks.com, quote, "Be tuned into sensory issues that may affect the student in your particular class. For example, echoing locker rooms and loud, fast activity can make PE overstimulating and overwhelming." End quote. Teachers also need to be very aware of the potential of bullying of autistic children in and outside of the classroom. Children with autism usually struggle socially and are very susceptible to bullying. The next disability to be examined is traumatic brain injury, or TBI. Unlike many of the disabilities mentioned in this presentation, TBI is usually not something a student is born with. A student with TBI followed the typical developmental milestones until an injury permanently disabled them. The injury can present physical issues in the form of preventing them from performing specific motor functions. Most commonly, students with TBI suffer cognitive issues. According to the Center for Parent Information and Resources, cognitive functions can be severely affected by TBI. Common issues are memory, short and long-term failure, reading, writing, listening, thinking, and talking. This is not all. Children with TBI can also be afflicted with severe emotional and social disabilities. Students with TBI are much more likely to live with anxiety, depression, emotional instability, and communication difficulties. All of these challenges make relationships difficult. Like students with autism, children with TBI are much more comfortable when following routines that are easily learned and maintained. These routines allow students to feel more relaxed and make learning easier. Students with TBI are often faced with visual and auditory impairments. Teachers should offer visual aids like PowerPoint presentations and educational videos to offer as many mediums for instruction as possible. Environmentally, classrooms should be equipped with the necessary technology to add visual and audio aids to the instruction. Again, like autism, students with TBI can be easily overstimulated, and teachers should monitor the students' behavior to help in eliminating distractions in the classroom. Lastly, orthopedic impairments present many challenges to students who live with them. Developmentally, students without orthopedic impairments usually start writing around age 5. Depending on the type of impairment, some students will never learn to write and will be dependent on their voice instead. Cognitively, students with OI may not suffer any disadvantages, but many do. Students with OI are also at a great disadvantage socially. In many cases, the impairments can prevent students from communicating verbally, which makes connections with people extremely difficult. Instructional strategies for students with OI are as follows. Academically, teachers should allow students to perform tests, quizzes, and activities orally rather than in writing. This simple accommodation can make a world of difference for students who struggle or are completely unable to write. Environmentally, teachers should rearrange the classroom to ensure that the student has plenty of room to move about in their electric wheelchairs or whatever equipment they may be using.